Preview season rolls on, and today it's all about the Florida Gators. Can they move forward from that 8-5 record? Can they fulfill the high expectations that are sitting around them? We'll talk about all that and more here on Armchair Analysis. Hope you guys are having a great day. It is Sunday, June 29th, 2025. We are almost through the month of June, which means we are almost halfway through preview season, which is 68 teams and what's going to be 69 days because I accidentally missed a day while I was at home tending to some family matters. But the point being, this is a lot. This is every single Power 4 team, including Notre Dame, that we go through and preview their season with a full schedule prediction. Talk about the entire roster, at least the projected starters, and maybe some guys that might break out. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for this one because Florida is truly the first team that I think we can put on a national championship contender level. I obviously talked about Oklahoma a few weeks ago, or maybe a week and a half ago now. Oklahoma's a team I think can be a championship contender, but I think they're more of a playoff contender than a championship contender. This Florida team feels like they have a lot of things in place that they could maybe make that jump and be a title contender. We'll talk about that and explain why here in a minute. Looking at this team in 2024, they went 8-5, 4-4. They got a win in the Gasparilla Bowl last December. But this team in recruiting knocked it out of the park. This is a top 10 recruiting class for the Gators, and by all standards under Billy Napier, that's a huge success. In the portal, they didn't do a whole lot. I think their biggest addition in the portal was Tommy Doman, the punter, coming from Michigan. They set at number 116 in the portal with only 7 commitments. Nothing crazy. Some depth pieces. They did what they needed to do, but there's not anybody that's going to be a projected, or let me correct myself. There's one projected starter. That's J. Michael Sturdivant coming over from UCLA. Other than that, there is not a projected starter on this team out of the portal. That's a good sign. Truth be told, that is a really good sign because there's not many teams that can say that. When you look at this team last year and the numbers, they averaged 28.3 points per game. That was 64th in FBS. They averaged giving up 23.1 points per game. That was good for 44th in the country. Turnover margin plus 0.5. That was top 30 at number 29 in college football. Led once again by Billy Napier, the offensive coordinator Russ Callaway in year one, but he was a co-offensive coordinator last year. Expecting very little changes, just kind of. I'm going to be honest. I'm not expecting much change. I think that they're going to kind of do this the same way they did last year, and try to figure it out from there. Defensive coordinator Ron Roberts is in year 2 as a co-defensive coordinator, but Robert Bala steps in. He was a linebacker coach last year at Washington, led guys like Carson Bruner, and I'm expecting that to continue because obviously Bala's taken over that linebacker role here at Florida, which is really their biggest weakness, if you're asking me, if I look at this team. And when I say weakness, it doesn't say much because I think this team is absolutely set up to make a run this year. You look at the quarterback position, it's DJ Lagway, and it's his show this year. This is his chance to take it over and be the guy. Running back, Jaden Baugh returns, and while he wasn't technically running back 1, he was the leading rusher last year on this team. He had 673 yards rushing last year. That, again, led the team. Jacoby Jackson also comes back. He'll be in the fold and making some plays as well as probably running back 2. Not expecting anybody else, but there is Trayon Webb and KD Daniels. We'll see how they play out. Wide receiver. This is probably one of the most inexperienced wide receiver rooms that Florida's had recently. You lose Elijah Badger, you lose Jameer Adike, but you keep Eugene Wilson, which I think is a big deal. Eugene Wilson is a guy that I expect to really break out this year. He had 266 yards last year, wasn't bad, had some big plays. He's got to take the step as wide receiver 1. That's really what this season rolls off of. And I think it can happen. I think it's going to happen. He had 266 yards again last year. We'll see how he can push forward, make the big plays. J. Michael Sturdivant is just a really solid, experienced wide receiver that I think can take some of the pressure off of Eugene Wilson. Khalil Jackson is also in that mix. You got Dallas Wilson as well, who's expected to make some plays and be a big deal. He's a true freshman, a guy that maybe we could expect to really come onto the scene in a big way. At tight end, they got Hayden Hansen. Not a lot to say there. I expect him to be really just a rock steady guy at that position, a good kind of last resort option in the passing game, and maybe not even last resort. Maybe he will have some plays designed for himself, but that'll be determined as the season rolls on. The offensive line led by Jake Slaughter, the star center, one of the best in the country. He played in 12 games last year, but when we talk about this offensive line, first off, they return 58 games played from last year. And when I say that, that means that, let me run through this list real quick. Austin Barber, 12 games played last year. Kanijah Harris, 12 games played last year. Jake Slaughter, of course, 12 games played last year. Damian George Jr., 10 games played last year. And then, of course, Bryce Lovett, 12 games played. Equals 58. One of the most experienced offensive lines in college football. They were, I believe, my best offensive line in college football when I did that list. Their run block grade as a unit was 78.6. That's 11th in college football. 11th in Power 5 last year. Pass blocking grade was 77.3. That is good for 6th in college football. Really excited to see this unit get to work. And I think that's going to help this pass game kind of come into its own with these wide receivers, trying to figure out who really is wide receiver one and who else is going to step up and make plays on this offense. Right now is a good time to let you know before we step into the defense. If you're new around here, leave a like, subscribe, specifically subscribe. We're trying to hit 100 subscribers before we hit the opening weekend of college football. So week 0, we got a couple months to do that. Really hoping to make that push and get there. We're only 14 off. Just leave a subscription. It's free. No strings attached. You just get to sit here and listen to me run my jibs about every Power 5 team. I mean, we only are doing 68 teams in 69 days, like I said earlier. Really excited to keep going forward with this, and we've got the best yet to come. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, LSU, Florida today, obviously, but Georgia will come up, Tennessee will come up. We've got a lot of really fun teams, and we rotate through the Power 4 conferences until we get to the end. So I ask that you do that, and I thank you for your time and watching this video today. Back to the normal scheduled content, the defense this year. Talked about it. Co-defensive coordinators Ron Roberts and Robert Bala taking over, working together. This team last year was a top 40 defense according to PFF in terms of grades. They were graded an 82 overall as a unit, or an 82.0 as a unit. They were the top 15 run defense, though, coming in at number 15, grading at 90.5 as a unit. They return all 11 projected starters return from last year's 2024 roster. That does not mean they were all starters. They returned 5 starters from this unit last year. They returned 8, by the way, on the offensive side of the ball. But returning 5 starters, the biggest one to me, Tyreek Sapp. He is the guy, the man on this defense. He graded at a 90.3 last year. He was my number 1 defensive end in college football when I did my top 10 list a couple months ago, or just over a month ago now. And he is going to be the game wrecker. His health is probably the biggest thing and one of the biggest keys to this team throughout the entirety of this season, because his ability to get to the quarterback. He led the team in sacks last year with 7. I expect that number to go up. I think he may even have over 10 sacks. That's kind of a bold prediction here. But he also led the team in tackles for loss with 13. I think that number is going to continue to go up. Forced fumbles, he led the team, or tied for the team lead with 2, along with Caleb Banks, who's returning as well with 2. Jordan Castell is your leading returning tackler with 55. That is like 4th, I think, overall from the team last year, but everybody else is currently in the NFL. Bryce Thornton returns, leading the team in interceptions. He was the leader last year with 3 interceptions last year on the team. This defense, I have a lot of high hopes for. I think that the returning players, the returning talent means a lot, but I think it's going to take a minute. This again, a new defensive scheme, because again, you got another year of co-defensive coordinators. Again, Ron Roberts has been here, probably going to be the guy calling the plays. He's a more experienced at the coordinator position. He's a more experienced coach. But Robert Balla is a guy that I have a lot of high hopes for. He was at Alabama a couple years ago before he went to Washington, led that linebacker room. This guy knows what he's doing, especially in that position, and I'm excited. So when we're talking about linebackers, we're talking about George Gums Jr., we're talking about Miles Graham, Grayson Howard. Those guys I think are going to have a really solid time, but you also got guys on the bench too that could probably step up. And one of my favorite players I think on this roster right now is LJ McCray. I'm excited to see where his role lands on this team. So with all of that said, as I do, I read off my thoughts, and then I'll read you the thoughts of an anonymous assistant coach in the SEC from the Athlon Sports Magazine. And I'll shout them out a little more here in a second. But my thoughts. It's not often anymore you can return this kind of production in college football. At least if you haven't been one of the elites, being the Ohio States, the Alabamas, a team that's won a championship recently. This team has some real potential to be what I would consider special. A legitimate, maybe national championship team. And that's hard for me to say because I don't give that out. I don't project that very often. But this is a team that I think has what it takes. And by the time the postseason comes around, if they do their job in the regular season, I think by the time the postseason comes around, this is going to be one of the most experienced teams in college football. So with that said, let's take a look at what was said by an anonymous SEC head coach. If DJ Lagway continues to develop and stays healthy, they're going to continue to improve. They don't have a killer at receiver, but they're solid at running back. Defensively, they're young, but they've definitely got some guys in there that look elite. This is a massive year for Billy Napier. He survived because of the changing politics of the game and his buyout, but it ended up working out last season. Now he can show positive momentum with this group and start competing for the postseason. Lagway and that offensive line are legit enough to bring back a true Florida offense. If they can be in the hunt for a playoff bid and start scoring points like those old Gator programs, I think he'll be off the hot seat for a while. Lagway could compete with Arch Manning for the best quarterback in the league. That's a bold statement at the end. Best quarterback in the league competing with Arch Manning. Okay, interesting. So let's dig into that. Actually, I don't read these until I read them here on the show. And by the way, Athlon Sports 2025 College Football Preview Magazine is the place to go to get really some of the best you can find. Now, obviously, Phil Steele's got some great stuff. I actually saw Lindy's yesterday in the store, and it looked pretty solid. I've never gotten a Lindy's magazine. Nothing against them. I just have never gotten one. But Athlon's been the tried and true for me, and the one that I like really the most. But let's look at this quote specifically. I think he'll be off the hot seat for a while. Lagway could compete with Arch Manning for best quarterback in the league. So, off the hot seat, I agree. Billy Napier will be off the hot seat for a while after this season. Lagway and Arch Manning, the two best in the league. So, in a league that contains Garrett Nussmeier, Lenore Sellers, Austin Simmons, which we have not seen, but I expect good things from, DJ Lagway, Arch Manning. I don't particularly agree with this sentiment, but you could say Diego Papia if you want to. You could say Marcel Reed if you wanted to. Taylor Green, I think, has a right to be in this conversation too, if we're just throwing names out there. Do I think these two are top 5? 100%, they are top 5. Do I believe, and would I buy it if you told me that these two are the top 2 in the conference in 2025 specifically? Probably not. Probably not. It was just that's an interesting quote. That's an interesting discussion. Maybe we'll talk about that later on here in the preseason when we get down to the month of August. Maybe I'll talk about that in the SEC preview. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at this 2025 schedule that they have in front of them. There is something completely wrong with this thing. Hang on, give me 1 second. Well, ignore the original thing you saw. I forgot to change the at and at the neutral site part of the schedule. So the top half is correct. The bottom half was a little off. But anyways, this schedule is... So last year we looked at this schedule and we said, man, that's difficult. You know, Florida State was coming off of an undefeated regular season, and we did not expect what we got out of them. Ole Miss was loading up. Kentucky was expected to be better. Georgia was supposed to be national championship, the favorite. Texas A&M came out to be good. Texas was good. Miami beat them at home. It was an interesting schedule last year, and really it doesn't change much because of the way the SEC schedule is. It'll rotate, and next year it'll be a little different. But for right now, there's not a lot of change, and this schedule looks a lot better this year. I think it's because of what we know about Florida now than it is what these teams on the schedule are, because I think all these teams are really solid. But we'll go ahead and get into it because I don't have a whole lot else to say. When we look at the beginning of this season, they start with LIU and USF, and LIU, that's going to be an easy win. I don't really expect anything drastic there. If they lose this game, then it's cause for disaster from the beginning. They're not losing that game. USF, a tough team, a fun team. I think this is going to be a good test to see how good they are right off the bat. Let's not forget, Alex Galesh has done a really good job with USF, and Myron Brown is still there at quarterback, and they're going to be a really solid team. I just don't see them pulling the upset, but it kind of does prove a litmus test immediately for Florida. You go out and just walk USF off of your field in the swamp. Okay, then we're in business, and maybe this prediction, given what it might be, turns out legit. You go on the road after that to face LSU, and I think this is going to be a really fun game. This is an early season test. This is an early season SEC championship battle right off the bat. And I think that Florida's going to go on the road, and I think they're going to fight to the end of this thing. It's just not going to be enough. I think Garrett Nussmeier, I think the one thing that LSU has that Florida doesn't at this point right now is proven wide receiver depth, commodities, players who can provide. I think that's going to be the early season struggle for Florida, is finding that guy who steps up and becomes wide receiver one, becomes the guy in this offense. I think with that being said, LSU will get the win in Death Valley. You go on the road, you go to Hard Rock Stadium and face Miami. And last year, Miami beat you on your own field if you're Florida. This year, you get the chance to go to their field and beat them. And I think that is exactly what's going to happen. I think this Florida team is going to bounce back off of that loss and really start putting together a bit of momentum going forward. You get a bye week, and then you face Texas at home. I want, with everything I have, to really give Florida the win here because it's a home game. I'm buying into the overall talent level of Texas right now. Going to give Texas the win, even in the swamp, and that's going to be a really tough, really fun game again. You go on the road to face Texas A&M, and while I like Mike Elko, I like what they are, I like what this team has potential to be, I'm not fully buying them yet. I think this is going to be a close game. I'm excited for it. But I'm giving Florida the win. They'll face Mississippi State, a bit of a chance to cool off, if you will, before a bye week even. They'll get the win over Mississippi State, getting the bye, and going to play Georgia. This is going to be a fun opportunity. Florida has not beat Georgia since 2020, since the COVID year. This is a chance for Florida to come out and say, hey, we are back. We're no longer going to just get walked. And last year was an opportunity for that too, and they competed from start to finish of last year's game. This year's an extenuation, a continuation of that. One of which that I think they actually get the job done. I'm taking Florida to beat Georgia this year. They'll go on the road to Lexington after an emotional win and face Kentucky, who's going to be great on defense, as we expect really every year under Mark Stoops. The biggest question for Kentucky is their offense, and I'm not buying into it one bit. I think that they have potential, but I'm not buying anything until I see it, especially at the quarterback position. Taking Florida on the road. They go on the road again, face Ole Miss in Oxford, and at this point, we're going to know who Ole Miss is. I don't really think it's going to matter who they are. I think Florida's going to get the job done and get the win there as well. Meaning you get 2 more home games to close out the season, and to my recollection, this is the latest Florida and Tennessee have played in a really long time. November 22nd. A rivalry game before another rivalry game to close out the season. You know, if this was Nico Iamaleava at quarterback and Tennessee's coming back and looking really good, we're having a conversation about who wins this game. With Joey Aguilar at the helm, I don't fully know what to expect. I don't know how this offense is going to look because I don't think they can just go full air raid. I don't think he's got the talent, the arm talent for that. It means there's going to be some changes for Tennessee's offense. If there's not, then I think that I would like to be wrong, but I think that we're looking at a very, very down year for this Tennessee program. I'm taking Florida to get the win over the Vols. They'll close it out at home again against Florida State, and in this one, it's basically who do you trust more at quarterback? DJ Lagway, Thomas Castellanos. And even then, the defenses. I think Florida's got a heavy advantage defensively. I really feel like Florida is just a heavy favorite here. They're going to close the season on a 7-game win streak and finish the year 10-2, 6-2 in SEC play, losing to LSU and Texas. It'll put them in the conversation to make it to Atlanta and play for an SEC title. But it also puts them in position to make the college football playoff. We'll have to see what the rest of the predictions are. I'm heavily taking the over here of 7.5. And I buy 7.5 to the end. I don't think that there is, well, I think there is a world, and it involves injury, which we do not hope for here on this show. Barring injury to a serious impact player on this team, over 7.5 I think is a lock. Odds to win the SEC plus 2,000. I mean, I'm not putting my money on that because I'm really not putting money on any SEC championship odds, but those are some that I like. National championship odds. I don't mind that either, but I just, and that's the thing, if they make the playoff here, this, again, as I said earlier, are going to be one of the most experienced teams in the sport, especially in the field. It's going to be really tough to see a team, depending on their matchup, a team that beats this Florida program. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited for it. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Of course, as always, I welcome it. I encourage it. I love the back and forth that we get in the comments. It's been a really good time going through these and putting together record predictions. And so far, 10-2 is the best we've done so far. The best team we've had in a prediction to this point. So that only means that we're getting better and better. We're getting better and better teams. We're getting more likely to our locks for the college football playoff, which then will turn into our college football playoff predictions, Heisman predictions. DJ Lagway might end up in that conversation. Who knows? Make sure you stick around. I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Next teams up on this schedule here are, if I'm not mistaken, two rivals in their own right. But I do need to go in and double check because I don't want to lead you wrong. And I haven't wrote it down because I haven't got this far in my work yet, but it is in fact Pitt and West Virginia, the backyard brawl, the next 2 days here on the channel. Make sure you tune in. You don't want to miss the back and forth that's going to happen on those. I already know two of my closer friends, at least in terms of group chat friends, are Pitt and West Virginia fans. I'm excited. I know the comments are going to go crazy on that. Make sure you stick around. Again, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Like, subscribe. It's all free. Just helps me out, helps these videos get further. And again, we're trying to hit 100 by the beginning of college football season. I thank you all for tuning in. Hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you tomorrow with the Pitt Panthers.